Department of Corrections says work on the proposed prison in Franklin County has been on hold for several months.
A new funding request from the governor is also delaying any future plans. In a joint budget committee hearing on Tuesday, lawmakers approved a request that the state use funding originally for the prison to instead be used to expand current prison capacity. It also prohibits using the funds to build a prison in Franklin County at least through June of next year. The project has not been brought up during the first 2 weeks of the fiscal session.
That's the indication we hear that Franklin County is not going to come up this session. And at least with the drafting of moving this other, I think 73 million now, then, that seems to be the indicators are that they're going a different route.
The governor still says she believes the Franklin County project is the best way to expand prison capacity in Arkansas, but her office is exploring other options right now.
Well, a new change to military selective service registration could impact millions of men across the country as automatic enrollment is set to take effect. Under the new law, men between 18 and 26 will be automatically registered for selective service. This instead of having to sign up on their own. The policy applies not only to U.S. citizens, but also green card holders, refugees, asylum seekers, and undocumented men, while those on non-immigrant visas are exempt. One law professor says while this process may be more efficient, it raises red flags for privacy and security.
The selective service system is now going to affirmatively be able to go out and collect information from a bunch of different places that it couldn't necessarily do before, and kind of create a central database of federal, some state information, all of the above.
Thorlin, a U of A law professor we just heard from, says that it poses the question of how immigration officers will use this new system for undocumented men. He also says this way of registration does not mean that a draft is happening, but rather men no longer sign up on their own. Well, first of its kind nursing program is taking shape right here in Arkansas.
Yeah, the Arkansas Healthcare Association celebrated the first ever graduating class from its School of Nursing in Rogers. These 21 students started as certified nursing assistants in long-term care facilities and are now walking away with their licensed practical nursing degrees. The program allowed the students to work and go to school at no cost and return to their facilities with a higher title.
We are healthcare providers, and we see that the shortage of nurses is real. We also see that the aging population continues to grow, and we see that there are barriers that exist for a lot of our healthcare workforce, people who have wanted to go to nursing school and not had the ability to do that.
The school also had graduations in Little Rock and Jonesboro this week for cohorts there. The nursing school says graduates are expected to make 70% more in wages with their new titles.
Well, city leaders have approved funding to take over operations of the Rogers Activity Center. The city council took the initial step last night for plans to fully move programming under the Parks and Rec Department. In a release, the city says for decades, the center has been run by a partnership between the city and the nonprofit Rogers Community School Recreation Association. Programs, schedules, and daily operations will stay the same during this transition. In a full statement, Mayor Greg Hines says that the change will help the city continue to deliver consistent programs as the city grows. Well, now to the latest in the Middle East. President Trump is again signaling that the war with Iran could end soon.
In an interview with Fox News, Trump said he thinks the war is, quote, close to over. The fragile ceasefire appears to still be holding, and so does the U.S. military's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The ceasefire is set to expire on Tuesday of next week. President Trump also told the New York Post Tuesday that a second round of peace talks with Iran could be happening over the next 2 days. Vice President J.D. Vance led the first round of peace talks in Pakistan last weekend. He says he feels good about where things are in the negotiations.
The reason why the deal is not yet done is because the president, he really wants a deal where Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, Iran is not state sponsoring terrorism, but also the people of Iran can thrive and prosper and join the world economy.
U.S. stocks climbed Tuesday on the hopes that war could be winding down, but gasoline still is above $4 per gallon on average.
Well, now to the testimony in a lawsuit following the deadly flood that swept through a girls' camp last 4th of July weekend.
At least 27 campers and counselors were killed. Victims' families are trying to stop additional cleanup at the camp as it gets set to reopen. Here's Jason Allen with more.
One of the directors of Camp Mystic was overcome with emotion during courtroom testimony.
You failed her, did you not, Mr. Eastland?
I wish we had more information.
All the information was there for your entire family to see and utilize if y'all had just stayed awake and looked.
Families of some of the 27 campers and counselors who died in the 4th of July flash flooding last year were in tears.
Searching for their child, right?
Yes, sir.
As Edward Eastland described sleeping through overnight flood warnings.
Did you want a trooper to come knock on your door and tell you to do your job?
No, sir.
What should the state have done? Should they have showed up and said, wake up, go save these kids?
I think it should have been a more urgent alert.
The testimony came as the family of Seal Stewart, the only camper still missing, tries to stop any cleanup at Camp Mystic of what they say could be evidence for their lawsuit. Mystic is getting ready to reopen this summer at a campus next door on higher ground than where the deadly flooding happened.
You have taken deposits from the parents of over 800 children to come back in 6 weeks, correct? Yes, we have.
The Texas Health Services Department sent a letter to Mystic last week informing them they were reviewing hundreds of comments and complaints about the camp's plan to reopen. State legislators have their own investigative committee that is finishing to look into what happened that night. In this hearing, another day of testimony is expected before a judge decides if Camp Mystic can continue to work on their property or not. Jason Allen, CBS News, Dallas.